Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Rabbi Isai, we're holding the Pegimel and Beis, like 18 lines from the bottom. The good news is that Pedal and Beis is super short. So we're going to hope to finish today's daf. This makes it super easy, be'emes, real easy. We're discussing, there's a large list of items that are puzzle, that if you put on the Mizbeach, you don't have to take them off the Mizbeach. If they were put on the Mizbeach by mistake, you don't take them off. Put on the Mizbeach, you weren't supposed to put on the Mizbeach, you don't take it off. There's another list of items that if you put on the Mizbeach, you must remove them. So we have a 5-way machlokes really. What the main word is. What to concentrate on. If we do this, it'll be super, the whole sugya is easy all the way to the Mishnah. Rabbi Yeshua says Ishim, the point is fire. Something that goes in a fire doesn't come off the Mizbeach. So, wine doesn't go in the fire. So you have to take it off the Mizbeach. Blood, does it go in the fire, blood? No, so it comes off the Mizbeach. That's it. Rabbi Gamliel says no. The word is Mizbeach. Anything goes on a Mizbeach. Does wine go on a Mizbeach? Yes. Does blood go on a Mizbeach? Yes. So if they go, those things and all other items, they go on the Mizbeach, don't come off. Rabbi Shimon says, the Nekuda is he brings the word Oila, I threw in me'atzmoi. It must come by itself as its own carbon. So if wine is attached to another carbon, you bring Oila together with wine, so that wine comes off the Mizbeach. Because it's not me'atzmoi. It's not an individual, its own chashav carbon. So the Nekuda here is me'atzmoi. Rabbi Yosef Glili, so these three, the first three, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Shimon, we had in the Mishnah. Now we're going to discuss Rabbi Shimon now, and then we're going to move very, very quickly into Rabbi Yosef Glili, into Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Yosef Glili, Rabbi Kiva is saying something very similar. Rabbi Yosef Glili says, the key word is kvasim. It has to be an animal. That would limit what? A mincha, let's say, is not an animal. Wine, not an animal. Rabbi Kiva says the word is oila, very similar to kvasim. There's one afkamina between the two of them. It has to be an animal, but oila. What else is there in oila that kvasim doesn't have? Oila sa'oif. So that's, now, if I ask you a bunch of questions, you probably know the answer to all of them. You'd know the whole sugya now. Because Rabbi Shua says fire, Rabbi Gamliel says mizbeach, Rabbi Shimon says it has to be its own individual thing, Rabbi Yosef says it has to be an animal, and so does Rabbi Kiva says it has to be an animal oila, like a oila. Says the Gemara now, 18 lines from the bottom. Rav Shimon Oimer. Tanya Rav Shimon Oimer. Oila. Ma oila haba b'galal atzma. Here, you see the atzma, ma'atzma. Has to come by itself. Avkol haboim b'galal atzma. There has to be something that comes on its own. Yotzu nesachim haboim b'galal zevach. If you're bringing a type of a carbon. Now, there are nesachim, Rabbi said, that come by themselves. A minchas nesachim. Or just nesachim. Forgetting the minchas nesachim. That's a mistake. That's a different mincha. But nesachim that come by themselves, en chanami. You don't take it off the mizbeach. It has to be called abayim b'glal atzmon. Yotzu nesachim abayim b'glal zevach. If the wine comes because of the carbon, and it's not supposed to be there, or even if it's kosher, get it off. It's kedai to remember the psukim over here. It's not to remember, just to pay attention. Pasuk lamed zayin says kol hanugeh b'mizbeach yigdosh. Any type of carbon, mincha, wine that touches the mizbeach, touches it, yigdosh. The mizbeach has a power to make it kadosh. So that would basically mean everything. But the next pasuk lamed ches, says kvasim. And two psukim after that, it says oilas tamid, an oila. So Rabbi Yosef Glili Yomer Metoich Shenemar Kol Hanugeh b'mizbeach yigdosh. Shembeani bein royu bein sheinu royu. Anything, all items. Tamid loyma kvasim. Makvasim ruyim is like a sheep. Sheep is roy. It's appropriate to put on the mizbeach of kol roy. Rabbi Kiva Yomer oila. No, the key word is not kvasim. The key word is oila. Ma'oila ruya, just like the oila goes on the mizbeach, I've called ruya. It has to be something that belongs on the mizbeach. My benayu. So what's the difference between kvasim and oila? The bird Oila is also an Oila. So according to Rabbi Kiva, he learns from the word Oila that is included in the pasuk. And therefore, if the Oila is Oif, which is possible, in this case, when on the Mizbeach, you don't take it off. Mar Ma'islam Oila, Rabbi Kiva goes with Oila. Mar Ma'islam Kvasim. Rabbi Yitzchak goes from the word Kvasim, it has to be a behema and not a bird. But one cannot ignore the other. Rabbi Yitzchak can't ignore the fact that it says Ayla. Rabbi Kiva can't ignore the fact that it says Kvasim. Iksiv Kvasim, v'loiksiv Ayla. If it only say Kvasim, havamina afil mechayim. I'll think is that we're going to see Mefurish in the Mishnah. A whole part of the Mishnah discusses this. That if you bring a live animal onto the Mizbeach, get him off right away. But he's supposed to be an Ayla soon. No, get him off. Havamina afil mechayim, because Rachmana Ayla. Ayla is a lashon of it's already shechted. It's going up to Hashem. It's not about to, it is. So it's not alive anymore. And Rabbi Kiva that learns the key word Oyla, Haksiv Kvasim, but what is he going to do with Rabbi Yosef Aglili's Kvasim? That seems like only an animal. Oh, I need to tell you that it's a living thing, it's a chai, a bal chai. Not a mincha, not a flower mincha. Because Rachmana Kvasim, it has to be a bal chai. Oh, so Meila, if we go back to here, we have the 3 Tanoim of our Mishnah, and we have the 2 Tanoim that we just discussed, Rabbi Yisrael Glili, Rabbi Kiva. Everything's clear now, yeah? Kvasim and Ayla. So what would be a nafkamir between the first 3 and the second 2? Omra Papa, Kmatzim Shikachu Bekli Ike Benayu. There's something called a Minchas Nesachim. A Minchas Nesachim, yeah, is a mincha that comes because he decided to bring a mincha. It consists of flour, oil, and wine. Minchas nesachim. How much oil, how much wine? Depends if you say it's a minchas nesachim of the sirim, of this. We say it in Rosh Chodesh, yeah? A log, yisara, and the different measurements of oil. But it comes by itself. So, is it something that goes on the Mizbeach? Yes. Is it something that comes by itself? Yeah. It's by itself. So, therefore, our Tanaim, all the Tanaim in our Mishnah are going to hold it doesn't come off. But Rabbi Yosef Glili, it's not a keves, it's not a Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Yosef Glili don't hold it. So let's see how it works. Take a look. According to Yeshua, it needs to be on the fire. Why? Because it's a mincha, it's flour. Rabbi Glili says Mizbeach, certainly it doesn't come off. It goes on the Mizbeach. According to Rabbi Shimon, it's me'atzma, it's its own individual thing. It doesn't go together. It's not associated to another carbon. So loy tered. But if you hold that it's kvasim, it has to be an animal. It's not an animal. Tered. Oyla, it's not an animal. Tered. So according to these 2 mandomers, Rabbi Yosef Glili, Rabbi Kiva, tered. Says the Gemara, Rish Lakish Amar, and now comes Rish Lakish, and he makes a seder over here in the whole sugya. Rish Lakish Amar, mincha habab. Is this a mincha? Is this kmatzim? Rish Lakish Amar, mincha habab b'fnei atzmo divrei kulam lo tered. So now what's interesting, this lashon, you don't find a lashon like this. Lo tered. We have to do another slide there because this is minchas nesachim. It's the same thing. This is a mincha and minchas nesachim. Fine. Lo tered. Divrei kulon doesn't mean all 5. Divrei kulon in this Gemara in Rish Lakish means the roiv. Whoever the roiv is, that's the kulon. So you have nothing to do with the Mishnah. The roiv. 3 out of 5 is considered kulon. Interesting, no? Divrei kulon. So if you stop over there, it will mean all 5. But it means the roiv. Mincha haba b'fnei atzmo divrei kulon lo tered. That's Rabbi Yeshua and Reb Shimon, like we just saw. Same thing. The Rabbi Kiva tered. Mincha haba im hazevach. Now, what about a mincha that comes together with a carbon? What's going to change over here, Rabbi Isai? That's my Reb Shimon. Tered haba im hazevach. The Rabbi Yeshua lo tered. The Divrei Kulon tered. Givaldik. You see now the Divrei Kulon changes a little bit. The Divrei Kulon is those 3, Reb Shimon, Rabbi Yosef Glili, Rabbi Kiva, the Divrei Kulon, because they're the 3 out of the 5. Great. Nesachim habayim b'fnei atzmon. Let's think about it. if wine comes by itself, what's Rabbi Shimon going to hold? It comes by itself. Huh? Rabbi say, anybody? Lo tered. So let's see what happens. Whoa. But according to Rabbi Yeshua, if wine doesn't go on a fire, so that's going to have to be tered. Okay? So that's klar. Wine that comes with a carbon. No, what's going to change here? Whoa, what just happened there? So only according to Regila Loitariad. Why? Because Regila says Mizbeach. Wine is something that goes in Mizbeach. Wine is not something that goes in the fire. So Rabbi Shua says it has to go off. Rabbi Shimon didn't come by itself. It's together with a carbon. According to Rabbi Akiva, it's not an animal. So according to everybody, Tered. According to Regila Loitariad. Why? It's something that goes on a Mizbeach. Says Gemara Pshita. It's very interesting. Gemara says, why do you need a whole sikum? I need a synopsis here of the whole sugya. What did Rish Lakish add to something I didn't know? I could have figured all this out by myself. Pshita says Gemara, mincha haba b'fnei atzmi tzricha. What at the end of the day he came to say one thing. A person is permitted to bring to the Beis Hamikdash a minchas nesachim, consists of flour, wine, and oil, if he feels like it. That's all he wanted to tell us. Says Gemara v'nishmin k'der Rava. So then say it like Rava said. Why do you have to give me a whole sikum of the sugya? And he doesn't even say the main point. You have to figure out from Rish Lakish what he just say. Misnad avad b'chol yom. Says Gemara nesachim abayim zevach tzricha lei become a karv l'machal yom achara me'achra. At the end of the day, you want to tell us that since the halacha is that if you bring a carbon, you could bring the nesachim that go along with the carbon. A bunch of carbonas have wine that go with them. That wine doesn't have to go together with the carbon. You can bring it in a day later, a month later. So if it comes by I would think that it comes by itself. Since it could come at a different day, I think it's considered something by itself. It has its own chashivas. So you can do it at night. The next day, they're considered like the saga that go by itself. In that case, even if Shimon agrees that it's something that doesn't go off the mizbeach because it's by itself, that even if Shimon holds, it comes off the mizbeach. And if you want to see it all together, just to give yourself a headache, this is what it looks like. Okay. So now we're going to give you a list of the things, the items that go on the mizbeach. It's a long list. We have to understand why this list doesn't come off the mizbeach, and the other list goes off the mizbeach. Halon, you have meat that stayed overnight. We'll show you a video on Amud Beis. What yoytze is will be more negea. Halon, I'll show you a video right now. What's halon? Halon is something that stayed overnight. Meat that went out of the Beis Hamikdash and came back onto the mizbeach. Bahatomei, meat that's tomei. B'shenishchat chutz l'zmanim v'chutz l'mkoimei. If the meat, as the kohen was performing the shechita, he thought in his mind that he's going to bring it to his son's bris in a week from now, or he's going to eat it in Bet Shemesh outside of Yerushalayim or outside of Beis Hamikdash, so it's possible. Now you put it on the mizbeach, you don't take it off. The Gemara is going to explain. We're talking about kohanim that are tamei. So a puzzle person was mekabel the dam, a puzzle kohen did the zrikas hadam, which he shouldn't. It passes the carbon, but if you put it on the mizbeach, it doesn't come off. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, shenishchat b'layla, v'nishbach dama, v'yotza dama chutz lakloim, imolza teirid. Comes Rabbi Yehuda and says we have three things. Gemara is going to explain why these three things. Three things. Nishchat b'layla was shechted at night. If the blood spilled onto the floor, or even if it was accepted in a klisharis and it spilled on the floor, and later on you picked it off the floor. V'yotza dama chutz lakloim. The blood went outside of the Azara, Imol Satayrid. Rabbi Shimon Oimer Loitayrid, that we have to find out why. Rabbi Shimon Oimer Loitayrid. So according to that shita, it'll be mamish fell right on the floor. It was never miskablikli. Loitayrid. Rabbi Shimon says Loitayrid. Rabbi Shimon Oimer called Shepsuli Ba'Kodesh Mikabloy. Rabbi Shimon Loitayrid. Rabbi Shimon Oimer called Shepsuli Ba'Kodesh HaKodesh Mikabloy. Depends where the psul happened. If it's something that happened now in the Beis Hamikdash, then if you put it on the Mizbeach, lo yered. Lo yepsul b'kodesh. A zaydik thing, a zaydik psul, some other psul that had nothing to do with the Beis Hamikdash. Ein a kodesh mikablo. What are examples? And here's the list. Ve'elu shelo hayu psulim hakodesh. Harivei v'anirba, an animal that an averis performed with it, or it performed on the human being. Umukta, somebody set aside an animal for avodah zarah. V'anevad, or somebody worshipped this animal avodah zarah. Ve'esnan, it was a payment for znos. V'amechir, and somebody did a trade. He traded a sheep for a dog, so you can't take the sheep and use it as a carbon by kilayin. And if you take a goat and a sheep, and you have an offspring that's a mixture, treifa, found that it has a hole in its heart. Born with a Syrian, or Bali Mumin, has a mum. Rabbi Kiva machshir b'Bali Mumin. Rabbi Kiva says that a Bal Mum is okay. We discussed this already. What kind of Bal Mum does Rabbi Kiva mean that's okay? Cataract. Baduk Shabai. Rabbi Kiva machshir b'Bali Mumin. Rabbi Chanina's Gana Koyanim. Rabbi Chanina's Gana Koyanim Oimer. Doicha haya abes Bali Mumim el gabi ha-mizbeach. My father says Rabbi Chanina's Gana Koyanim wouldn't allow the Bali Mumim on the mizbeach. Shem shem olu le'yerdu kachim yordu le'yalu. Just like the halacha is, if you have a piece of meat that wasn't supposed to go on the mizbeach, you don't take it off. If it popped off the mizbeach, don't put it back on, because it's not the pshat that the mizbeach makes it kadosh. The mizbeach doesn't fix it. If it's on, you don't take it off. It's lachmi shel mizbeach. It already grabbed it, so no, leave it. But once it comes off again, you don't put it back. You have a live animal, get it off. That's what we discussed before. And if you have an oila that went on top of the mizbeach, it must come off. If it's alive. The guy didn't know what he was doing, and he did a shchita on top of the mizbeach. Show you tomorrow. Ravon Weisfish sent me. He said it's very easy to do havshad. It's basically you skin it, you pull the skin right off, and you chop it up into the pieces that you need to chop it up, and then you put it onto the fire. Says the Gemara Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Zois hi ha'oila. We have three words here. Zois hi ha'oila. Harei l'shleisha miyutim. These are three limitations. Prat l'shenishchato balaylo, v'shenishbach doma. If it was shechted at night and the blood spilled, v'shiyata doma chutz l'kloim. If the blood went outside of the azar. Shem also says tered. Rabbi Shimon Omer, oila ainli ela oila kshera. B'nayin l'rabbis shenishchato balaylo. Shimon learns it differently. From the word oila I learn oila kshera. B'nayin l'rabbis shenishchato balaylo, v'shenishchato doma v'shiyata doma chutz l'kloim. V'halon, and he keeps on going. The list goes. V'halon, it was left overnight. Ayoytz, and he went out of the Beis Hamikdash. V'atomin, it's Tomi, v'shenishcha chutz zman v'chutz m'koyim. He had a machshavas pigul in his head. V'shekivlu psulim v'zarku his damai. An apostle did a zrika. Apostle was makabel the dam. Hanitonim l'mata shenesanim l'malo. Here, this we didn't have in a while. The chatos goes above the red line. The oila goes below the red line, and he reversed it. U'l'mala shenesanim l'mata. There's blood that goes on the mizbech hachitza. Most bloods go on the outer. Some go inside. He reversed it. In the first mission of Zevachim, the only two korbanos that you have to, that l'shma is ma'akiv and it passes the carbon, Pesach and Chatas. Minayin. How do I know that all these, this entire list, if you put it on the mizbeach, lo yerdu. Over here, the word oila is not so much carbon oila, but it's a lashon of that it went on. Riba Torah achas kol ha'oilim shem olu lo yerdu. Kol ha'oilim, the word oila, something that goes up doesn't come down. Shem olu lo yerdu. Oh, but what about the other list? We have a whole other list of things that do come off. Yochshani marba hariveya v'hanirba. Bestiality, v'hamuktzah, v'hanevad, v'esnan, u'mechir. B'klayim, v'utreifa, v'yitzadoifen. All these things, the avodah zarah and the esnan and the mechir, klayim, treifa, v'yitzadoifen. Tamaloyma zois. It's a limitation. Zois, no. Only some of them don't come off, but this whole list comes off. Umari isa, but why? Why do you decide this list yes and this list not? The rabbis say, lo yitziselu. Achshiriba dafei daladam beis. Wow, what are we going to do here? We got to slow down a little bit. The difference is that the list that doesn't come off the Mizbeach is because their psul, they became puzzle inside in the Beis Hamikdash. A whole list of those who. Okay, yeah, let me stop in the middle of the word. And something that the psul has nothing to do with the Beis Hamikdash, the psul already paused from before, like Oriveh, Venirva, Avodah Zarah, etc. Review the Ma'asila Mahacha. So now Rabbi Yehuda says as far like this. It's very, very simple. What Rabbi Yehuda is going to do is anything that has like a shasa kosher sort of, anything that we see some sort of heter in this thing, anything that has a heter in another application, in another scenario, if it goes on the Mizbeach, it doesn't come off. L'mashal, Pigul. Where does Pigul have a heter? So that you're going to have to wait. What about Lina? Lina has a heter. You see, sometimes you're allowed to eat meat after 2 days. The shlama meat. It has a little bit of a heter somewhere else, so if it goes onto the Mizbeach, it doesn't come off. So let's see how he does this. Why, if the blood is left over overnight? What does kosher mean in this case? Kosher means that if it goes onto the Mizbeach, it doesn't come off. Sharei lon kosher beimurim. We see that by beimurim, if you have the parts of the carbon that have to go onto the Mizbeach, if they stayed overnight, you're allowed to, if the person put it on by mistake, it stays on. And how do I know? How do I even know that? Lon beimurim kosher, how do I know? Sharei lon kosher bebasar. We see, like in kachim kalim, you get to eat it after 2 days. So which kachim kalim you can't eat after a day and a night? Shari lon kosher b'basar. Yoitze, sha'yoitze kosher b'bama. Bama, the whole bama is outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Anything that comes off that bama is already yoitze. Tamei hoyel v'huda la'avodas tzibur. We see that sometimes tamei is okay. Tumah hutra b'tzibur, if you have roiv klai Yisrael, the kohanim, most of the kohanim are tamei, they can perform the avodah, the most klai Yisrael by Karm Pesach we saw it. Chutz zmanai. This is interesting. Where do we see that pigul is okay? Hoylu meratzil piguloi. The halacha is, in order for pigul is very sensitive. In order for pigul to work, we said that you can't have another machshava, you can't have a machshavas chutz l'makim, let's say. Pigul has to be, so pigul, all the avodas have to be kosher. The avodah has to be kosher in order for pigul to work. But how could the avodah be kosher if you thought that it's pigul? It's pigul. You ruined it with your machshavas of pigul. So you see that the let's say you're doing shchita and you're thinking that you're going to eat this carbon in a year from now, in a week from now, by your kid's bris. So you had a bad machshava, it should have ruined the shchita. But if it ruined the shchita, then it's not pigul, because you have to have a good shchita for the pigul to work. So you see that pigul, actually sometimes it does work, it's kosher. With the pigul, it's still kosher. So you have a little bit of a situation of kashrus and pigul. Chutz l'makom, that svara doesn't work because chutz l'makom doesn't need the kashrus. Hoyel v'itkash l'chutz zmanim. Okay, you compare chutz l'makom and chutz zman. Shekiblu psulim zarku as dama. Where do we see that if somebody who's pasul that accepts, that does kabbalah sadam or zrikas sadam, it's okay. B'hanach psulim, because we're talking about psulim the chazal avodas tzibur. These are kohanim that today they're tamei, but tomorrow they're not. So they have a situation of kashrus. Now the Gemara just goes back to what Noam pointed out when the Gemara makes a comparison between a murim that are pasul to shlamim or kachim kam to go on to mizbech for more than a day and a night, 2 days and a night. What do you bring me a raya from something that the Torah says you could eat it for 2 days? Says the Gemara, Tana, wait a minute, before you get up, we're Tana azois Torah sa'oila. We're almost finished at 8 o'clock, 8:00. Oh no. Zois Torah sa'oila, riba samachlei. We have a pasuk that Zois Torah sa'oila. And we don't know what list goes in the don't take it off the mizbeach and what list take it off the mizbeach. So if you have some sort of far out connection, that's enough to put it in the list of it doesn't come off the Mizbeach. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.